Hi, this is Allison coming to you from my studio here in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. And I thought today we would do some art poetry style paintings together, some watercolor backgrounds with mark making over top. And of course, this is going to be slanted towards my style of painting and what I love, but I'm hoping that you will really zero in on what colors you're craving and what mark making you enjoy. And if you're not at that point, maybe you don't know yet, just knowing that you are welcome to copy me, to emulate me with whatever I'm doing, as that's just how we learn and that's how we get better. And that is how eventually we find our own voice and authenticity in our own art. And so I just want to share my process because I love it. It's also very fitting with my lifestyle. A lot of us, no matter what we're up to, life is really busy, and to fit creativity in is really a wellness practice, and it's one that's so good for our mental health. And I know for me, I need art in my life. And I'm going to start by pulling a card from my art poetry deck. So this is a 71 card deck of all of my original pieces of art that have been photographed and reproduced and put into print on really high quality cardstock. So 350-gram cardstock, for those of you that are curious. This box is well loved. I'm a bit embarrassed about it. It has paint all over it, and it's dented up here. But anyway, it is meant to be used, right? And the box protects the cards. I'll just read you what I had written on the back. So my art poetry deck, each card is a visual reminder that the present moment holds much beauty and guides us with new insights and inspiration. This deck of cards can be a source of comfort and healing during difficult times. You can choose a card in the morning or at night or whenever a thoughtful moment invites. Art holds the power of connection and evoking change, and I'm grateful that you chose my art poetry. And I also want to just say I'm so grateful to all of you that have been supporting me through this journey of publishing my art poetry deck. I had no idea that I would ever publish my art in this way, and I'm really grateful for all of the support and for everyone that has purchased the deck. And even if you haven't purchased the deck, I just really appreciate the support around my social media and encouragement and sharing. And for those of you that maybe hadn't purchased it, I want to incorporate it into my videos just so you can kind of see the deck if it's not something that was available to you. So I chose to do this gold edging on the side of my cards. It has a tiny bit of a shimmer, which is quite lovely. And I had chosen the painting, my art poetry painting, which has the word quiet written on it. I know it's hard for those of you to see. I often sign it along the drip or along the side, and then when I do art poetry paintings, sometimes I add words, sometimes I don't. They don't often rhyme. And my art poetry is just a very meaningful art style that I have developed through exploration and discovery of my own voice through colors and marks and composition and learning what substrates I love to paint on. Again, for my lifestyle, art, for me, I really love artwork on paper because I can do a watercolor layer, and when you can get pretty quick. I recommend painting quite quickly if you can, because you stay out of your head and you really learn from that process. And once the watercolor has dried, you can go back and zero in on what you love and what you don't like, and almost use it as like an editing process, and really using the process of creating these backgrounds as a journey of discovering your own love of a certain style. Maybe you'll try this and you won't enjoy watercolor. Maybe you don't like that you can't always control where the water and the pigment goes. and you know, you might be more comfortable with another medium like acrylic paint or oil paint. We all sort of have our different loves, and when I first started painting, I didn't think I would like watercolor. I didn't like it, and I was looking at all these books with very realistic watercolor paintings, and they just didn't resonate with me, even though the artwork was incredible. And there's so many amazing watercolor artists out there that can paint realistic. But what I really needed as a human and as a creative, my style is very abstract. And that's how I kind of stumbled on what I call my art poetry paintings. I'm just going to shuffle my deck and just randomly pick a card off the top. Oh, it's funny, I had just pulled this card, I think it was, it was when we had the partial eclipse here in Calgary, Alberta, Canada, so just a number of days ago here, and I had pulled this card I think it was the day after we had the eclipse, and I thought that was just kind of cool because this reminds me of the moon partially showing just this outline of the sun. And it made me think of light and shadows. And I had written the words, hold on to light and then shine it forth. And I think by creating art, we are putting a part of ourselves, a very vulnerable part of ourselves, back out into the world, especially if we share it. I mean, if you don't share it, that's just completely fine. Art is very personal and it can be very vulnerable. So, you know, it's up to you whether or not you want to share your creations. But I guarantee you there will be people out there that resonate with every single style. And especially if it comes from a really deep, authentic place, you will find that audience where you are inspiring other people through what you're doing. Because if you like what you're doing and you get to that place where you love it, other people will love it as well. And I might just go through and pick a couple cards on purpose right now, because I often pull cards at random. Right now I'm just really enjoying how this turquoise, it almost looks like these colors fit in together with this this painting I had painted. I'm gonna just flip through and pull out some of my art poetry paintings because I have a lot of paintings in here. Oops, I have to see if I can get that green paint off that card. So this would be considered art poetry without the words, that one. And again, art poetry without the words. Let me just see. I'm just going to pull some of my favorite art poetry paintings to show you. So I am an artist that has found several styles that really speak to me, that I love to paint, and that I kind of consider my own, even though, I mean, they are very similar to what other artists have done, and I've just really tried to put my own spin on them. So, you know, I though really feel like, you know, what do you love painting? Here I pulled out the card, develop your authentic voice. You know, what feels good to you? What do you get excited about? And really kind of keeping that in mind if you know, for finding your own style. You need the art to fit into your lifestyle. Again, right now I love watercolor. It's very seasonal for me. I tend to, in the summers, paint more acrylic paintings, things that are messier because I can go outside, I can get better ventilation. Watercolor is just the easiest thing. I mean, you can grab some watercolor crayons and, you know, travel with them and activate them and, you know, grab some paper wherever you are. I mean, they're just so versatile and accessible and very affordable. You can buy some, you know, just a couple water-soluble crayons in colors that you love. So just for instance, I really, really love these Neocolour 2 aquarelle crayons. So they're by a Swiss company called carand'ache, and they are such great quality. I initially started purchasing individual colors at my local art store, which I'm in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. That's Kensington Art Supply. They have individual watercolors there. I'm not sure about Inglewood or Destination Art. There's a bunch of local stores, and some of them will sell these individually, which is amazing because you basically have watercolor in a stick, and if you can get some colors that you really love, you can just, pop these in your travel bag and take them with you, and then, carry one of those, even those Japanese paintbrushes that you actually have water in it, and you just squeeze it, and all you need is the watercolor paper, these crayons, which are watercolor in a stick form, and then one of those little brushes. I wish I had the brush to show you, and I might not be getting that name correct, but I believe they were a Japanese style water brush where you fill this little plastic cartridge on the end, and you can unscrew it midway, refill it with water, and when you squeeze out the water as you paint. So very, very awesome for travel. Okay, I need to focus here. So I'm looking for my art poetry paintings, and you're kind of getting an idea of my art style. If you are following me for the first time, I paint a lot of mountains because I'm in Calgary. I paint a lot of very abstract, everything's quite abstract, but with a slight hint of, you can identify what it is. Mountains. This is one of my favorite art poetry paintings, which I had written on here during 2020, with a healthcare background and COVID affecting our lungs. And I was still working as a registered nurse in a very, very busy, stressful environment. 2020, I did this painting, Remember Your Breath, and I hung it on my wall until I sold it because I wanted to remind myself every day with, washing our groceries and masking and just looking back at all the things we were doing, just to be able to remember to just stop and breathe and just take that time wherever you may be, out and about or at home, or, if you're in a stressful situation, just remembering to take those deep breaths. And I needed that reminder at the time. Life gets busy, and sometimes I think, wow, I need to just stop and take some really deep breaths. And so I had written the words on here to go with this painting: breathe deeply and inhale gratitude. So this is very much art poetry style. I have many influences. Laura Horn is a huge influence. I love her teaching style. I love her work. And I think it was probably Laura Horn and also Wendy Brightbill, both incredible artists. Laura is out of Australia, and she has the most wonderful sort of, I don't know how to say, but like teaching style, temperament. She's just such a beautiful, beautiful person, and she's really, really great at going through all the mixed media supplies. And I think her primary field is, mixed media, but watercolor. And I took a lot of her classes, as well as Wendy Brightbill, who's out of, I think it's Colorado, and she's just a beautiful person. She found art after she'd been in a car accident and sort of had to tap into that creative part of herself to get her out of, I'm pretty sure she identified having depression and, chronic pain, and she has quite a story, but I feel like I work similar to Wendy. She's very prolific, and she offers just the most incredible condensed classes. So she's another one to follow. She's just amazing. So I'd say Laura Horn and Wendy Brightbill. And of course, I've taken many, many other online classes, and but I feel like I've kind of put my own flair onto the paintings, even though we have these people we admire. There, you know, when you paint often, you get to a point where you find your own voice. No matter how hard it is you're trying to emulate someone or, you know, copy their style, you will ultimately find your own, you know, just through that passion of, say, loving what someone else does and just, you know, knowing that it's in you and there's something unique about what you do and kind of grabbing onto that. This painting, again, when you put your art into print, it darkens, and especially watercolors. So, you know, giclée print is different. Fine art prints, you can get that gorgeous transparency if you have a really good printer. But when I printed, obviously, when I published this deck, you know, it did darken and it did block out some of the paintings. So just looking at this, considering I think it was really reflective of my art, but just to know that a lot of these art images they look a bit more like acrylic or gouache because of the reproduction of them into print. I really love this card. I also really like Alina Hennessy. I've taken a lot of her courses, and I really love how she incorporates some words with her beautiful, she talks a lot about wabi-sabi, art of imperfection, and the drips I loved Laura Horn, the way she drips a lot of her art, or she did when I was taking some of her classes. The melting pot was a class that she offers. I think she still offers it. And it's just a wonderful mixed media class. If you like my style, you'll probably really, really like that class. And I think you can just take the one. It's quite affordable. And I think that's what got me into some of these really watercolor abstract backgrounds with layers of mixed media. So developing your own authentic voice. I actually have this painting in my home right now hanging on the wall, and if you all want to just take a deep breath and inhale gratitude, I want to say I appreciate you being here, and I'm going to go get that painting. So I think it's kind of cool to see. I'm just gonna pull you up a bit here carefully. Sorry about the echoing. Oh, I just lost my charge cord, but that's okay. All a bit of learning here. I really just wanted to show you, if you haven't been following me, this is sort of my style, one of my styles. So this is 140-pound Arches cold pressed paper, and I do have a block of that here somewhere. So here's an example of a painting I have not finished yet on a block of Arches. Oh, that's so funny. I do not waste anything, and I clean my brushes, and so that's so funny. You cannot see this brand because I have painted all over it. Just a second. Okay, there we go. Good thing I have a lot of paper. I really, really love this paper. Not everybody does. It's expensive, but I prefer paper to canvas, and while I'm on that note, I do create my art poetry style. This one's not done yet. I do paint on canvas, although in Canada it's really hard to get watercolor canvases, so I have to prep them with an absorbent ground. This is just one example. This is an absorbent ground by Daniel Smith, and it's titanium white. It comes in a number of different colors. I really like the titanium white, but this is quite toxic. I don't do it on video because I like to be outside. It can be really messy, and because of my healthcare background, I think maybe I'm more sensitive. I mean, I'm a sensitive person, but I feel like I'm just a bit more sensitive because I have allergies with chemicals and that kind of thing. So digressing here. But just for those of you that are interested, I seal my watercolors. I've had that question a lot, There's two very good cold wax mediums, and this is the one that I use. I also use the one, I think it's Gamvar. I use them both, so I just kind of go back and forth and decide which is my favorite based on, I like the ones that really have low odor. I actually think the Gamvar maybe doesn't have as strong of a smell, but it's not a bad smell, but it does give me headaches if I'm not in good ventilation. But you just buff this on, and I wanted to also share, this is why I have, so the following that I have, you probably like me because I'm so distractible, because otherwise I'm sure I would make you all go crazy. I don't really have a focus when I do my videos. I just kind of jump off from where I last was. When I paint with you all on video and on my own, I grab a piece of 90 or 98 pound watercolor paper. This is Canson mixed media paper. So don't be fooled, even though it says mixed media paper, you don't have to find one that says watercolor paper. You just need to read it and know that the Canson mixed media paper is wonderful for watercolor. But the reason I'm telling you this is when I'm painting, I, pretend I'm painting, I have quite a bit of pigment and water on my brush. Sometimes, depending on what style I'm doing, I clean off my brush by just using this motion and getting the brush mark on this paper. And I love creating these little brush mark papers for future ideas and collage. So as an example, this one is not finished yet. This is really quite a big painting, but you can see this collage here is my watercolor paper, and this collage down here is also my watercolor paper, as well as down here. And so that is this paper torn up and put into collage. Now, when I had done this, I used a gloss medium, like a glue. And of course, when you're using that, because watercolor is water soluble, it activates when it's wet. It smudges. So when you have to know kind of what medium you're putting over it, otherwise it will smudge. However, so next time I do collage, I've kind of learned that, because sometimes I like the smudging, sometimes I don't. When I tear off a piece of this, first I'm gonna buff it with my Dorland's wax medium. You can just use an old t-shirt, something that doesn't have a lot of dust, like a very smooth, clean, white, some kind of a cloth, and you buff it on, and then you leave it for like 24 or 48 hours, and then you come back and you can buff it into more of a sheen, very much like buffing a car. BobBlast, who is a YouTuber, years ago, I had looked at a video on how to seal my watercolor paintings with Dorland's wax medium. And if you look up BobBlast, how to seal paintings with wax, I believe that should pull up his video. I have linked him before, but I can link him again. He just makes it really easy. He does it with his acrylic paintings as well, I believe. But I just wanted to share with you kind of where I'm at with discoveries that I've made. So I have these little torn off pieces of watercolor for future paintings, for collage, and I'm going to go back and just seal them with a wax medium, and then I'll put the glue on the back and then put it into the art that way, and probably use that as like a top layer. So that's just my thinking. If you all have any ideas, I've learned so much from doing this channel. I have to think there was somebody that brought to my attention the acrylic inks versus inks made of shellac, and that was life-changing, because I have been painting with acrylic inks and I couldn't figure out why some of them smudge and some of them don't, and that is probably the reasoning. So where were we? This is an example again then of art poetry without the words. So I'm going to add words, and it's on canvas. It's just a super tiny 4-inch square canvas, And I was just really practicing getting that watercolor down and creating this dreamy background of colors I love. I think of it like a garden in the sky. I showed a few of these. These are just a few of the little works in progress. So this is my accountability. I need to finish these little ones. They're very close. I even sign it before I'm done. It's all about not smudging something, and if I'm impatient, sometimes I sign if I'm waiting for something to dry. Okay, so this is the paper I like, but you can use, you know, any watercolor paper. And then where were we? So this is just an example of a painting I did on Arch's watercolor paper, and I glued it, mounted it to the wood panel. And I have done a few videos on Instagram and here on YouTube how I've done that. And this is sealed with Dorland's wax medium. And I'm trying to think, the reason I was showing you this is an example of how the art can change with photography. So, I mean, it's really, really hard to compare these on video, but if you are an artist and you haven't yet put your art into print, or, you know, had a sample kit from a local printer or a printing company, you know, maybe considering just stepping out and seeing what does some of your art look like in print. It's kind of a neat experience. You can just see how this is so dark and opaque down here, but when you look at the actual watercolor, it's transparent. So a good printing company will be able to reflect that. And yeah, this again is, you know, printed by a huge publishing company, and they're not into fine art printing, if that kind of makes sense. And so I'm just going to show you, just set this back. Oh, and yeah, this, I bought this with the wood frame. So this is wood in wood. And this is what the back looks like. So it was secured. Thank you to my dad, who's super handy. He helps me with a lot of my little projects, but he had helped me attach this, like the wood, to the frame, and then we wired it, and then of course I have my information on the back. So that's just an example of one of I did this painting within the last year, and I was gonna sell it at my art show, and just decided to kind of keep, some of my walls are quite empty because I had a big show this past December, and so I've just didn't want to have empty walls, and this one I'm just keeping for a little while. I have no problem letting go of my art, but I like to have walls that have art on them. Okay, back to the art poetry paintings. So this is just another example of one of my art cards, and I did embellish it. So that moon has a bit of a shimmer because I added my water-based acrylic gold Sharpie. I just couldn't resist. I did this one in bronze. And so these are examples of art poetry paintings, which I thought maybe we could do today. And this one I had written down the word nurture. So sometimes I'll write, you know, more of a sentence, more like a quote style. Sometimes I just feel like writing one word. And it took me a long time to get comfortable with my handwriting in my art. But if you just remind yourself, this is you, your handwriting is authentic to you. Nobody can copy it, even if they try really hard. It is something that's, it's so awesome. Oh, did I show you? How many did I show you? I feel like I showed you enough. But yeah, I didn't like my writing for a long time, but I've learned to love it. I've learned that I love writing on my art, and I'm shocked at how many people, when I have an art poetry painting which I'm trying to sell and I haven't written on it, they request me to write something on it, or they ask me if I have one with words, which I find so interesting. So my audience, my art audience, seems to resonate with my art where it has my handwriting. I just had a laugh about how I looked at the word strength the other day on my video, and I had spelt it STRENGHT, and I was looking at, I was so tired, I had a headache that day. And man, I tell you, when, I don't know about you guys, but like when you have a headache or you're tired, I feel like part of your brain is taken up by pain. and anyway, that just made me laugh because I was thinking about when you are writing on your art, just making sure that if you're tired, just grabbing a scrap piece of paper and writing it out before you actually touch your piece helps, because we all have off days, and that is that's just what it feels to be human, right? Okay, just gonna have a quick drink of water. Okay, I said the word quick again, which I'm trying to practice slowness. I'm gonna just zoom you all back down. I'm gonna bring you down, and I am gonna write on here. I'm gonna grab, so I've tried a lot of black pens. This one I bought quite a while ago. It's the Michaels in-house brand called Artist Loft Illustration Pen, and it's a 0.5. It's a very, very small tip, but not the smallest. There's smaller, and it's a permanent pen, and I have found that some of my pens smudge. I think even some of these micron pens, which are more expensive. I'm just playing around with different black pens. Permanent Sharpie, I think, is pretty good. That's a bit more affordable. And it depends what you're writing on, what kind of pen you use. I also sometimes would write with a black Jelly Roll pen, but they're hit and miss with how they write. Just looking to see if I have one handy. I don't, which is shocking because I tend to have everything right here. And I'm just gonna fix my pillow because I have back issues, so gotta protect my back. And I thought we could just do, I don't know how much time we're gonna have because I sidetrack, but I was gonna do some art poetry paintings with you all. Okay, so I try to not overthink it. So if something comes to my mind with words, with color craving, with marks, I try not to resist that urge to stop myself because I think I might say mess it up. I just go with it. And I think one of the things that can really help us as creatives is when we have an idea, whatever you can do to get that idea out is the utmost important thing you can do. So when you're out and about and you happen to have your camera and you see something and you want to capture it, yes, it's great to capture it in your memory, but having that photo is a reminder later on that that day you were inspired by something and maybe you didn't have the time to act on it that day, but going back in your photos or, you know, just somehow finding that inspiration that tweaks your memory again. When you act on it, you would be amazed how far you get. So every day, when something creative inspires you, try to do something with it. Record a voice memo, maybe write it down, maybe do a quick drawing. Whatever it is that you can hold it with you is building up your authentic voice, finding your style. So it's so easy to kind of get overwhelmed. Like, say you want to paint, well, just say you see a beautiful flower. You know, you can first, just getting a photo of the flower is awesome. Maybe doing a drawing of the flower. Maybe something about that flower reminds you of a person, or a place, or it's just the color of the flower. And so figuring out what it is about that thing that inspired you and how can you capture it, not in a way that's like going back and having to pull out, you know, making a painting and having to pull out, say, your acrylic paints. And, you know, for me, that would be so overwhelming. And it might be an idea I have, but I know starting small, capturing the inspiration somehow is just that one next step of then getting it later on to, say, a substrate, a canvas, a piece of paper, maybe just a journal. Maybe you're just doing this for yourself, for art therapy, you know, but that it's all about that destination of getting to what does that inspiration look like to you once it's created. And really just appreciating that you don't have to go back and paint that flower and be able to sell it. It's like capturing it and just using that as one next step. And if you don't go back to it, maybe there's a reason for it that you just, you know, you are already on to something different. But I think for me, when I get an idea, I'm really trying to either draw it, write it down, leave a voice memo for myself. And sometimes when I'm tired, I'll like go back and I listen to the message, or I look at the words or the drawing, and then it just inspires me again to just jump off from that point where I left off. And I think a lot of us, you know, again, we want it to be like, how do I say? Sometimes we kind of freeze, we get the inspiration and we get distracted, or we freeze in the thought of like, well, I'll never be able to paint that flower, so what's the point? Or, you know, well, I like the color, but, you know, how is that going to change my artistic journey? So just never underestimating the power of you feeling something, seeing something, hearing something that just sparks a little bit of feeling in you somehow, and being able to hold on to that. Okay, that's enough talking for now. So I just had written, and the sun came out. We've had some really, really dark days here in Calgary, Alberta, Canada, and I just really wanted to write that down. I really, really like this painting. It was really loose and I love the colors. And right now I just feel like it's probably, I would say it's almost complete, but just for fun, I want to do just a little bit of mark making with, I'm just craving this water soluble light olive Neocolour 2, which is the water soluble crayon, because don't get confused, they have wax ones. And I just decided to do, I'm just going to do a little bit of mark making in this area, and I'm going to add contrast because this is a darker green and I've repeated it up here. So I've just decided that I want to try on just some marks with this. And so I'm just going to push down, and I'm going to kind of stop and look and see, do I like it? I like it. I feel like I might just need to do a little bit, maybe a little bit bigger, maybe less, you know, more, how do I say, random with size. And I kind of like how I'm going off track into the pink. So I'm just kind of, you know, taking a step back and seeing it and just deciding whether or not I like it. I don't know if it really makes this artwork better or not, but this is just play and seeing what I feel when I'm holding the crayon and just deciding, do I like those colors together? I almost feel like it took a very elegant painting and it dialed it down a notch, if that's like my true feeling as like what's authentic to my style. And so, you know, maybe what I could do is be brave, and at the risk of sort of messing up the painting, because I kind of wonder if maybe I was just doing it for video for you guys, even though maybe I continued the mark even though I don't really like it that much. So because this is water soluble, there's a beauty of blending it out. And that actually gives it a different, more subtle look. And I'm going to try not to overwork it, but I'm adding quite a bit of water. And I'm just bringing it back to maybe the place where it was. And this is sort of how I call it editing my work. I know Helen Wells Art. I love Helen Wells out of the UK. She calls it resolving, I think, her work, her sketchbooks. And I'll show you. Now I feel like I made that a bit of a mess, but I'm not stressed about it because I am in a place of relaxation and play, and I know that I can go back over this with another water-soluble material once it's dry. So I'll just let that dry for a second, and we're going to go back to this with where is it? Maybe this olive gelato, this water-soluble crayon. Just trying to decide. That might look good because I like that color. This is more of a turquoise, and this more matches that moon. So when this dries, I'm just gonna put layers of this without activating it with water over top. So this is called Gelato, and it's Olive Color by Faber-Castell. And I just like to play with these in my work. I feel like it's almost dry. Okay, I'll behave myself and I'll let it dry a bit more, and then we'll go on to something. Whoops. I would say remind me to go back to it, but oh, I've caught something. Oh my gosh, just a second. I have some stuff balanced. Oh my goodness. I almost lost this. I almost lost these little shells. I have to show you these while they're here with me. These are from a company called Beam Paints, Manitoulin Island here in Canada. And Anong Beam is the woman that runs the business. It's a family business. Her mother's name is Anne, I believe, and she does beautiful, beautiful paintings. But they use these shells instead of using plastic packaging. And I love these little shells. There is so much watercolor in here when you get them. Like, I use these so much, and there's still so much in here. And it's so easy to activate the watercolor in here. I also can't wait to refill the little shells once the watercolor is almost gone. So that's something I wanted to share with you anyways. So good thing that they didn't fall on the ground. And we'll put them back in a safer place, which I don't know where it is in my studio. And then, okay, I see that I'm really, wow, I can't believe I've been on here so long because I'm just getting going. What I want to do is just dive right into some watercolor. I purchased these sweet little watercolor postcards and tins, again at Beam Paints. So where's the reflection of the light? It's hard to see here. Beam, B-E-A-M, Beam Paints Canada. That is where I purchased these little watercolor cards. I bought them online, and I like the size of them. I love the tins. I love the idea of these being postcards, and I thought it would be good for the video because I tend to paint quite a bit bigger, and this is just a good example of showing you my style. These are really, really beautiful quality cards. Okay, so I'm just gonna set these tins aside, And I'm really quickly going to activate. There, I use the word quickly again. Wow, I feel like, whoops, I should owe everybody. It's not like I can owe you money every time I say a word. I have to do something. Every time I say quickly, I have to take requests maybe of content. How's that? That's so funny. Okay, so I've activated my watercolors. I have a little, it's a Beam day. I feel like I'm beaming because this is a watercolor palette by Beam Paints. And so I'm going to use a couple different palettes. I happen to have my Around the World palette by Ocean Paper, which is a Hawaiian company that is moving islands. They were in Princeville, Kauai, and I think they are moving to another island in the process of change. I can't quite get all of that in, so just know that's the Around the World palette by theoceanpaper.com, and I don't know if they still have that on their website. They run out of paints really quick. And it took a long time. It was quite a story having to get those paints. So I don't promote any companies. I don't want to represent any companies. The only company I might ever be affiliated with, if they would have me, would probably be Beam Paints, because I love everything about the non-toxicity and their quality. And so I'll just use these two paints, and I may use my Gouache by Stone Ground Paint Co., which is a more opaque watercolor, more like non-transparent. So I get them really wet because I use both, a lot of pigment, a lot of water. I'm going to use my number 12 round watercolor brush. And I'm going to start by just doing some different compositions and color craving. Okay, and I really need to back off on the amount of pigment and water because this is small, so that's going to be a bit of a learning curve for me. And I love bright pink, so that is just my go-to. I dripped a bit up there so I could go in here, and then I'm immediately going to go into, just going to see if you can see that, this beautiful coral color up here. I have done swatch videos on these before, so if you're looking for names, today is not the day that I'll be able to go through names, but in my other videos you will be able to find the swatching of the Around the World palette by Beam Paints, as well as I have the full set of Beam paint stones, and I did a video of that. Right now, if you're painting with me, I'm just hoping that you're in a place of relaxation and play. You have some watercolor paper and whatever watercolors are accessible to you. And what I like to do, I'm just going to talk you through some, wow, look at that. Okay, that is being bold. That was a whole lot of yellow. And I'm going to add in some gold. I'm just going with what I'm craving in the moment, and also what I know from the history of my painting experience, painting every day, going with what I love. And I'm going to use this sheet again to create my later collage paper. And I'm going to be bold and add what color. Maybe I'll add this, I don't know what this is, like a brownish color. And I'm going to go in and add this beautiful pinkish color up here. And this composition is slanted to the left of my page, and I do love blank space, white space, negative space in this style of my watercolor paintings. I'm gonna dip into this green and just pull it up, and this composition is getting, I think because I put so much of the yellow unintentionally here, I'm kind of resolving it in my head, and it's becoming a little bit fuller of a composition where it's filling up all sides, and that's okay. And I'm gonna add in, I'm just craving maybe a darker color. I'm not sure what this is. Just gonna drop it in. And remembering that if you kind of squint your eyes, what areas are a bit darker or may need a bit more contrast. That's something that you can kind of think about if you're wanting to use sort of principles of art while you're painting. And I have to admit, this painting is not speaking to me now, but that's okay. We'll just keep resolving it. I'm going to add some maybe brighter orange in here. And I am going to add maybe, sometimes if I'm not liking what I'm doing as much or not enjoying it as much, I add my favorite color. So I'm going to add a phthalo green. This is a gorgeous color. I forget the name from Stone Ground Paint Co., but it's sort of like Golden's phthalo, PH, oh, I'm scared of spelling that right now. I have to actually write it out. Phthalo green. And I'm just gonna kind of drop it in and just pull around, pull that around a bit. And I love the way it's kind of feathered out there. And again, that's more like a gouache. So you can do that with watered down acrylic paint in your watercolors, and the higher quality paper, it does really, really help. Higher quality paper makes a difference. And I'm just gonna add in more of, I kind of mixed up a bit of a brighter green. And oh, so challenging working this small on video today. That's okay. And when it dries, I can resolve it even more. And so this would be what I would call like an art poetry painting, where I was craving colors, putting them down and kind of letting each part of the movement dictate what I wanted to do next. I missed some of that bright, so I'm going to just drop it back in up here, maybe touch it over here a little bit, maybe emphasize it a bit, see how I like that. Maybe add in a little bit more of the orange up here while everything's still wet. Again, the benefits of working quickly when you're painting. And I really want to drip that, but I don't want to drip the whole thing. So I might just set that aside and let it dry. And we'll do another one. And so, whoops. I'm just gonna see how do I want to do this. I'm getting my things quite wet over here. Okay, the next composition I want to do, trying to see how you guys can see what I'm doing here. Okay, we'll try that. Whatever color is on my brush right now, I'm just going to use. It's a really pretty kind of coral. And I'm just going to move some water. Okay, and then I'm just going to add maybe a little bit again of that greenish color. And maybe I'm going to go in and add some kind of darker green. And again, I really got excited because I forget about the size of this paper, and that's okay. And the size of my brush. I've tried smaller brushes, but I don't enjoy it. This is just my comfort with my style. I'm going to immediately add some gold and kind of pull some of the color from this area and just watch it move around. And I'm really craving like some blue or maybe like a turquoise in there. Let's see. I'm going to be bold and add this gorgeous turquoise and kind of pull it upward so it blends with the other greens. I'm going to try adding some more of that kind of phthalo color from the gouache set of the Stone Ground Paint Co. and just add that in there, maybe a little bit up top. And I really love how there's a bit of light pink coming in right behind that corally orange. And again, if I'm losing some of the orange that I started with, or that coral, I can just gently drop it back in because I've used a fair bit of water on my brush. And maybe just pulling up a little bit of up there. And this composition is pretty full. It's taking up most of my paper. I am gonna just move that one aside. And I'm gonna go back to this one and I'm gonna drip it. Still really wet. This is the benefit of working quickly. And I'm just gonna drip it down. And it was so wet, it took on a mind of its own and it dripped all through here. For my style, I don't really love when it does that, so I'm just gonna move around some of the color really gently and use my paper towel and just move out some of the brights that have dripped into my neutrals. And this is the beauty of, if you can afford slightly higher watercolor paper, because it gives you more room to move around when you're trying to almost like remedy something. And just kind of bring that down. And I'm just gonna drop in what color, maybe just some gold. Just some gold in here, gold in there. Maybe a little bit up there. Still really wet, but I got my drip. So I'll let that go sit aside. And now maybe I'll try doing something with a little bit, like maybe just a composition. I'll start with some gold with less pigment. There's some gold. And I'm gonna pull in maybe a little bit of this orange, a little bit down here, and picking colors that I'm craving. I'm gonna dip into, oh, that's a lot of pink. I'm gonna just pull in some of that pink, and you can see I've turned my paper. It's more of a horizontal landscape with negative space around it. That could change as I keep painting. I'm gonna immediately drop in a little bit of sort of like a pumpkin color. It's an orange. I'm gonna just drop that in, and then I feel like using sort of what is I think I'm gonna do a little bit of this this greenish color. In there, and maybe drop in a little bit more of a darker green. So I'm just kind of playing with the palettes that I have that are accessible to me and just deciding where do I want to put the colors. And whoops. And I'm going to go back to the phthalo color that I love so much and just add a little bit right here. And maybe get a bit more, just drop in that color. I know one of you had seen me paint with Phthalo by Golden, the acrylic paint, and you said you went out and you had to get that color. That's so cool that that inspired you. You will not be disappointed with that color. I'm just going to turn off my buzzer, so take a deep breath. I'm so stubborn and old school because I set the timer in my kitchen, which isn't that close to my studio, but that's just so funny. I do that just to keep myself on time. And I know I could keep like my laptop in here with me and set a timer or use a watch or something, but I just don't. It's like all about habits, right? It takes a while to change habits. Whoops. I just chose a really, really light yellow and just gonna dab up some of the droplets. So this really, really speaks to me, and I just want to add a little bit more of a darker pink in here and just see how that moves around. And again, with really good quality paper, you can dab up spots of paint that maybe flicked, and if you don't like where it flicked, you can just kind of correct it. So, but if you're just doing this for fun, it does not matter. I'm just gonna put a little bit too much in. I'm gonna go back and add a bit more of that opera pink, that really, really bright pink. And then deciding, do I want to add that anywhere else? I think I love how much pink there is, and I don't want to add any more. I could add in a little bit of a mustard yellow. And I'm just deciding, where is that here? Trying not to add too much because I get excited, and just kind of pulling that through here and just dropping more in if I liked it. And I'm kind of thinking of colors that would go well next to each other, and that just comes from knowing what paints you have and what palettes, what you like, what your experience is, what you've done in the past. So right now I'm sticking with greens, and this is starting to dry over here, but I'm just dropping in a little bit more green before it fully dries. You can see it blending in with the gold down there, and I want to get an even darker, I think I'll try my stone ground paint, this dark green gouache, which I can look up, and I will add to the description some of these colors. And I'm going to add in a little bit of a dark brown, maybe put a little bit of that color over here, and just letting it move around. So this is my process. After this dries, you can go back to it. You know, I love the idea of going back to it. If I have, 10 minutes in the evening, I can look at, what composition do I like? I actually see I could make this into a beautiful flower with my water-soluble pencil crayons. I really like this composition this way, even though I painted it this way. You can decide if you want to add more layers to the watercolor, and it's just such a fun process of relaxation and figuring out what you like and what you don't like. Right now I know that I want to add a bit more of a blue, just a little bit more of a blue down there, and just watch it move around a bit just for variety. I'm just kind of craving that blue. I like how it dripped up there a bit, and I might add a little bit blue just to darken that area if I do go back and decide to turn it into an abstract bloom, a flower. And then I would normally, if I wasn't on video, I do tend to add words that I'm thinking in the moment, and I just wait for an area to dry and I turn it so I don't smudge the painting. And I'm gonna just show you, so we have all these gorgeous layers, and here's an example of one that I have not finished. I'm just gonna create some space, I'm going to move my watercolors because I'm just going to work dry for a second. Move my brush. And I got quite a bit of, let's just see if I have. Just gonna clean off my table. So this is an example of a painting, which I just want to, you know, think on how would I want to finish this. I'm going to grab, I've been on here a while, so I won't be able to stay on here too much longer. I have a lunch date with my parents, which I'm excited about. And so I'm going to go with, I'm just feeling like adding some kind of, this is a thick pen. I want to switch to a thinner, but just to be consistent, I just kind of wanted to add almost like these kind of, this line work, these half circles, or these, almost think of it as like a bird or a butterfly kind of carrying ribbons across the sky. Or, and I like this thinner one better, this thinner permanent micron pen. So I am going to, what was that one? So the thick one was a 0.7 millimeter line, and this one is a 0.5, which I really like that. And I feel like I kind of want to add in, let me just think here. I want to add in some more of those little roses. I really like those roses in my work. And I'm just seeing, oh, I did not add polka dots. So I love polka dots, and I just look for areas that may be calling the white polka dots. This is my Japanese fine Posca paint pen. So I'm just going to add some of those. And they just make me, I feel like it makes, for me, something about, I don't know, my childhood patterns, maybe sewing patterns that my mom used when she made clothes, when she decorated the table. She loves to decorate the table for occasions and is really creative that way. And I don't know if that's where something polka dot, I just love polka dots. I always have, I like to wear them, and I like them in my art for mark making. And so is there a mark that you love? Is there a print, a pattern, something that you love that you would incorporate into your mark making? And I'm gonna do maybe another one of those little roses, maybe like a peachy pink. I'm just gonna grab some of my water-soluble crayons, and I'm just gonna do a little rose here. And I like to play with different shades. So I didn't like the second color I added. I wanted more of an orange. Just gonna see, I like that better. And then a little trick is I use a white water-soluble pencil crayon to correct and blend the areas of the flower that I didn't love. And now I want to bring in that. This is Salmon Pink by Carand'ache. So the same company that makes those Neocolour 1 and 2 water-soluble and wax crayons. And just, I love that. I'm pretty happy with that. I like to add mini line work in my paintings. So, you know, almost as a way of connecting to my art, connecting images, connecting organic, loose watercolor shapes. And so I'm using my micron, my 0.25, And I'm just adding in, kind of squinting my eyes and just deciding what would it look like if I added these fine lines. And I'm kind of adding them at an angle. And I like to add them in more than one place. This painting, I don't know if I would do that. Squinting my eyes, I could add them in here. I think I'm gonna wait and do a different kind of line work. I am gonna repeat maybe that line now. Now that I'm looking at this, I'm going to decide. Kind of go from here, maybe up to here, and using the thicker pen to be consistent what I had done above, and then going to my thinner pen. And I'm kind of seeing if I did a line here, it would kind of fall in line with that one. And I almost want to branch it out to here. And then I'm going to add maybe, do I want to add lines? Where do I want to add the lines? I want to add kind of the lines coming down here. Just for my love of this particular composition. And I think I'm gonna maybe just add that bird there, and I might just test out my Sharpie, which I haven't used in a while, for writing. Make sure I spell brighter right. Ha! Never gonna forget that. It is hard to find the right pen, and you get, you know, you have to really try different types of paper, different pens if you are going to incorporate, you know, legible words in your work. So there are brighter days ahead, and normally I wouldn't have the words so close in case somebody was framing this little 8x10 inch. So that's something that if I wasn't on video, I would think that out a little bit more and probably do it a bit slower. But I'm happy with this composition and the way it's turning out. And oh, before I forget, there's just a couple things I want to end with. So we'll do more of this in videos, but I wanted to show you all. Loving that texture already. So I could just leave that olive translucent water soluble gelato by Faber-Castell. I could leave that texture because I think that is just gorgeous and unexpected. Or I could take, I would use my finger, but I'm going to just use this blender device. You can use your finger, but again, I'm not going to get up to wash my hands right now, and I don't want to get this color over all of my other art that I'll be touching. So this is, again, an unexpected happy accident because I used a different material over something that I kind of edited, resolved, didn't like, and now I love it. And this paper, this is a very, I don't know if I would say it's cheap, but it's not the highest quality paper. It has a little bit of a gray tone, which I'm not such a fan of. So you can just see in comparison this white paper by Beam Paints, or sorry, not Beam Paints Company, but they supply it. That white next to the gray, I'm using this only as a sketchbook because I don't like that gray undertone. And this company though, oh, see the happy accident. So I'm just gonna see if I can, I just smudged that. Oh, there we go, high quality paper. There we go, back to normal. And I'm just gonna get that color off before it dries. Because I feel like if you salvage it before it has time to There we go. So unedited, right? This is what happens in my studio. Here we go. Okay, now I'm happier with that composition because it's not, it doesn't look like I smudged it, which I had done. Okay, but back to my journal that I was using. It's by Montmartre, which I got at HomeSense here in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. And it was a very affordable book. I liked it because it was an A3, which is a 11.7 by 16.5 inch book. So I really liked practicing larger watercolor works in here. And so we will go back to doing more watercolor backgrounds and mark making probably in my next video. So thank you so much for sticking with me. And I can just maybe pull one of my art poetry cards at random, and we'll leave you with that. And this one is my reticulated style that I had done, and I did mark making over top. I have my gold moon and birds. Tomorrow is a new day. So just remember, if you felt like today wasn't the best day for you, tomorrow is a new day, and you can always start something that you just have been wanting to start. So considering maybe, again, whatever's inspiring you tomorrow, maybe you can act on it, even if it's like just a quick 5-minute, 10-minute photo, a sketch, a voice memo, an email to yourself. There's always time. So thank you, and I hope you have a great day.